I'm Ruby. I'm 32 years old and work as an ER nurse at a small hospital in the state of Oregon. I haven't gone home much since I moved to Bend, but this year my mom called and said, "This Thanksgiving, the whole family wants you here." I thought maybe I should give them one more chance. Dinner took place in the same old kitchen of the house I grew up in. The turkey was bland, the red wine overly sweet, and the air thick with all the things no one dared to say. Everyone sat around the table, forcing smiles like everything was fine. I stood in the kitchen, scraping leftovers into the trash when I heard my mom's voice. "Mason will take over this house after your father and I are gone." "He's the son." I turned around. "You mean the house has already been signed over to Mason?" My mom shrugged, as if she'd just mentioned the weather. "Yeah, your dad handled the paperwork a few months ago." I looked over at Mason, my younger brother by 6 years. He was standing at the fridge, holding a cold can of beer, his face utterly unbothered. "No one said anything to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm the one who took Dad to the ER when he had the stroke. I took 3 weeks off, unpaid, to care for Mom during chemo." Mason smirked, that mocking glint in his eyes obvious. "So what? You don't even live here anymore. You left after college. What makes you think you deserve anything?" "You don't get it," I replied. "I don't want the house. But I deserve to know. Families should be honest with each other, Mason." I didn't get another word out before it happened. Mason crushed the beer can and suddenly lunged. His arm shoved me hard, slamming me back against the fridge door. My spine hit the metal with a loud thud. Before I could find my balance, his knee drove straight into my face. Pain shot through me like lightning. I collapsed onto the floor, blood pouring from my nose. My vision blurred, and the TV in the living room kept humming, the game commentary unfazed. I tried to crawl toward the wall mount phone. Every inch I moved felt like tearing muscle. My fingers trembled as I dialed 9, then 1, then... My mother's hand yanked the phone from mine, so hard it cracked against the floor. "Enough!" she shouted. "It's just a scratch. Don't make a big deal out of everything." I looked up at her, one eye already swelling shut. "You think getting slammed into a fridge and kneed in the face is minor?" She picked up the receiver, her tone sharp. "You always act like the world revolves around you. You turn every little thing into a crisis." My dad sat just a few feet away in the recliner, eyes glued to the football game, mumbling like he'd heard this scene too many times. There she goes again, putting on a show. I pulled myself up, limbs shaking. My white shirt was soaked with bright red blood. No one in the room moved. No apology, not even a glance. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. In that cold, hollow space, I was the only one trembling. The rest of them, silent, like nothing had happened. A chill ran down my spine. Not from the injury, but from the truth. I had never truly been seen in this house. Not once. No one asked if I was okay. I staggered out of the kitchen, hand pressed to my face, blood from my nose dripping onto the carpet. The living room was brightly lit, the TV still playing the Cowboys-Packers game, like that was the most important thing happening tonight. My dad stayed in his chair, eyes glued to the screen, beer in hand. As I passed by, he tilted his head slightly, not to look at me, but just enough to mutter loud enough for me to hear. "This girl always finds a way to ruin the holidays." I clenched my jaw, my hand trembling, not from pain, but rage. I stepped into the hallway that led to the back door, hoping to catch a bit of cold air to soothe my swelling cheek. That's when I saw it. The small leather bracelet lying near the edge of the rug, close to the leg of the dining table. Stained with blood, the leather strap was dirty, the metal clasp smudged, but I recognized it instantly. It was a gift from Miss Denise, a terminal cancer patient I cared for every day over 3 weeks. We talked, I changed her dressings, I sat with her when no one else did. She had no family, just me. On her final day, she held my hand and whispered, "You're not invisible, Ruby. You're more than the people who share your blood." I picked up the bracelet with 2 fingers, not caring that blood had soaked into the strap. Even when your own family turns their back, someone once saw me, truly saw me, just not here. I stood up and walked back into the kitchen. Mason was gone, probably upstairs or out smoking like he always did after stirring up trouble. My mom was loading dishes into the sink like the evening had only hit a minor bump in her perfect Thanksgiving plan. "Don't you think I should go to the hospital?" I asked. She shrugged. "You're blowing it out of proportion. Your eye's just a little swollen. You always turn everything into drama." I tilted my head. "Getting slammed into a fridge and kneed in the face is minor?" She turned, hands on hips, voice sharp. "Mason was just defending himself. You always bring up the past, bring up the house, who gets what. This house was never yours, Ruby. You're the one who left, not him." I let out a dry laugh. "So now it's okay to beat me up? As long as I don't live here full time?" She didn't answer, just turned her back. I glanced toward the stairs. My dad remained motionless in his chair, the glow from the TV casting shadows across his vacant expression and protruding jaw. No one offered to take me to a doctor. No one grabbed an ice pack. Not a single apology. I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom and flipped on the light. The room was dusty, like something forgotten. A faded band poster still clung to the wall. The old polyester blanket on the bed was covered in cat hair, something I'm allergic to. They'd kept it, not out of care, but because no one ever bothered changing anything for me. I pulled out my phone and turned on the front camera. My face was bruised, left cheek swollen, purple blotches blooming under my eye. I hit record, still holding the blood-stained bracelet. I looked directly into the lens. The only thing that ever reminded me I mattered was a gift from a stranger. That woman is dead. My relatives are alive, but they've never once seen me as a person. I stopped the video. I didn't know why I filmed it. Maybe to remind myself it really happened, that I wasn't exaggerating, that I'm not the problem. When I came back downstairs, my mom had covered the pots and was calling out from the window. "Make sure you wake up early tomorrow to do the dishes, Ruby. Don't think staying one night means you're a guest." I didn't answer. I slipped the bracelet into my coat pocket and opened the front door. The cold wind slapped my face like a bucket of water. No one chased after me. No one called out. Just the creaking hinge as I crossed the threshold and the wooden door shutting quietly behind me. I walked straight to my car, headlights off. In the rear-view mirror, the house I used to call home looked like a hollow shell. I turned the key, my fingers still sticky with blood. It was cold, but I wasn't shaking anymore. I drove off, carrying only one thing, the bracelet that proved someone once believed in me, and maybe, just maybe, I still matter, even if only to myself. I didn't head straight back to my apartment after leaving my parents' house. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the suburban streets, where Christmas lights had just begun to flicker across porches. Each blinking bulb was a reminder of holidays that used to choke me with silence, because I was always cast as the overly emotional daughter in the eyes of the very people who were supposed to protect me. When I finally got home, I didn't turn on the lights. The glow from the street lamp outside was enough to illuminate the compact kitchen and the little dining table where I usually sat after night shifts. I took off my coat, my left cheek still throbbing, then pulled a brown leather notebook from the drawer, the one I used to jot down shift notes and stray medical thoughts. I had never thought to write about my family in it, but tonight my hand flipped to a blank page and began to move. First line tearing straight from my throat after decades of being silenced. Thanksgiving assaulted by Mason. Swollen cheek, bloody nose. Mom stopped me from calling 911. Dad ignored it, called me a troublemaker. I took a deep breath, then kept writing. Age 8, Mason pushed me off my bike, scraped my elbow and knees. Mom said, "You just don't know how to balance." Age 11, Mason locked me in the backyard woodshed in the middle of winter because I took the last piece of pie. I stayed there nearly 3 hours, shivering. Dad said, "You probably provoked him first." Memories flooded back like a broken dam. I used to think these were isolated incidents, that every family had rough patches, that maybe I was just too sensitive. But now, writing it all down with dates, context, consequences, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I had grown up in a household where abuse was normalized. I stopped writing, hand numb, flipped to a new page. In age 15, Mason threatened me with a knife when I refused to loan him money for sneakers. Mom made me apologize for causing division. Age 19, worked 3 jobs to save for college. Parents sent Mason money for a used car while I couldn't even afford new glasses. Age 23, dropped everything to care for mom in the hospital. A month later, Mason posted vacation pics from Florida, funded by the family savings. I bit my lip as I wrote. I had never shared these stories with anyone, not even in the few therapy sessions I dared to attend, where I usually reduced it all to a single phrase: my family's complicated. I wondered if someone read these entries without knowing who they were about, would they think I was a child who was loved? Or would they immediately recognize it, a long-running cycle of manipulation and dismissal? Eventually, I left the table and opened my bookshelf. I remembered storing a clear plastic storage box somewhere, full of old medical receipts, letters, school photos. I pulled it out, sat on the floor, and began digging. Inside, I found receipts for painkillers from high school after a supposed fall down the stairs. Really, Mason shoved me. A photo of me at 14, arm in a sling. On the back, in Mom's sloppy handwriting, Ruby's clumsiness again. I see a sticky note tucked behind a math notebook. Don't snitch. If you talk, you're dead. Mason's handwriting. I have sorted everything into notebook sections: physical harm, emotional damage, gaslighting, enforced silence. I didn't know if any of this would change anything, but at the very least, I needed to start somewhere, and truth, once written down, weighed more than memories alone. I closed the notebook and wrote across the cover: proof for myself. No more doubting what happened. On the table, the bracelet from Ms. Denis still lay there, dried blood marking the leather. I slipped it back onto my wrist. It fit perfectly, as if it had never left. That night, I didn't sleep deeply, but for the first time in years, I didn't dream about being trapped in a locked room no one could hear me screaming from. The next morning, as pale sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, flipping through the pages I had written the night before. The dull ache beneath my left eye lingered, but what weighed heavier was something I hadn't yet faced: the photos. I remembered keeping a few old snapshots on a portable hard drive, something I hastily shoved into my bag when I moved 2 years ago. I hadn't opened it since, partly from being too busy, partly from fearing what I'd see of myself during some of the worst times. I rummaged through the filing cabinet drawer next to the table and finally found it. The old silver drive, its cable worn thin. I plugged it into my laptop and waited for it to load. A list of folders appeared, mostly hospital shift photos and admin documents. But near the end, there was one unnamed folder marked only with a date: R_722. I opened it. The first photo was of me at 17, standing in the old bathroom. My face swollen, a bruise on my neck, and a scratch running across my shoulder. I remembered that moment. I had taken the photo through tears after Mason yanked my shirt and shoved me into the doorframe. I'd thought about deleting it, but kept it as a silent act of defiance. Other photos followed, one from when I was 20, left eye dark purple, chin scraped. Another from when I was 26, my right arm in a sling after trying to stop Mason from smashing things in the living room. And most recently, a photo taken in the mirror last night, my cheeks swollen and dried blood around my nose. They all had clear timestamps saved from my old phone. I sat, staring at each one, an overwhelming wave of both sorrow and relief washing over me. At least I hadn't imagined it all. These things happened. They left marks. And now, they were evidence. I started uploading all of the photos into a separate folder in the cloud titled Project November. But I knew evidence alone wouldn't be enough. I needed someone who had seen what happened, someone who had been there. As I typed captions for each image, my phone buzzed. A new email popped up in a secondary inbox I rarely checked. Sender, Helen Grady. It took me a few seconds to place the name. Miss Grady was my seventh grade English teacher at Harlan Creek Middle School. She was the first person who had ever handed me a notebook and said, "Write down whatever you can't say out loud." I opened the message. Subject, Ruby, if you still remember me. Dear Ruby, I'm not sure if you remember me, but even after all these years, your face, especially the look in your eyes that day, has never faded from my memory. I recently read an article online about domestic abuse, and for some reason it made me think of you. I don't know why I searched for this email, but when I saw Ruby A. Branson in the alumni database, I had a feeling I had to reach out. I remember the bruises on your arms in my class. I asked, and you said you fell off your bike. But your eyes said something else. I reported it to the school counselor, but just days later, your parents came in to meet with the principal. After that meeting, the case was closed. I was told not to interfere too much in family matters. I stayed silent. I was cowardly. If you still need someone to confirm what happened back then, I'm here. I have that year's notebook with notes on the days I saw marks on your skin, the shifts in your mood, the week you suddenly disappeared from class. I kept them to remind myself never to stay quiet again. I'm sorry. And I'm here if you need me. With care, Helen Grady. I set the phone down on the table, my chest tightening. I felt like I was floating. Someone had seen. Someone had known. And now that someone was back, not to be silenced this time. I opened my laptop and wrote back to Miss Grady. Helen, I remember your brown shoes and the sound of your voice reading Emily Dickinson aloud for the first time. Thank you for coming back. I'm ready to speak now. And I will need you. I hit send. My heart was still pounding, but this time not from fear. It was the heartbeat of someone who finally knew I am not alone in this story anymore. I was organizing the photo files and evidence documents into a separate folder when the phone rang. The caller ID made me pause. Megan Taylor, my cousin from Idaho, Aunt Bonnie's daughter. We used to be close as kids, but we hadn't spoken in nearly 5 years. I hesitated for a few seconds before picking up. Ruby! Megan's voice came through, sounding urgent. I know it's been a while, but do you know where Ella is right now? I frowned. Ella? You mean Chloe's daughter? Yeah. She's staying with Uncle Carl and Aunt Brenda. I froze. Carl and Brenda, my parents. When did Chloe send her there? About 3 weeks ago. Chloe went with a relief unit to Louisiana after the floods. They didn't allow children, so Aunt Brenda offered to watch her. I sat up straight, a cold knot forming along my spine. Ella's only 8 years old, Megan went on, her voice lowering. I don't mean to interfere, but yesterday Ella called me from the landline. She said Mason pushed her, and then told her, "Don't be dramatic. Don't act like a victim like Ruby." My throat tightened. She was crying. Her hand was swollen. And what scares me is she didn't dare tell anyone else. She just whispered, "I'm not supposed to tell, or they'll be mad at me like they were mad at Aunt Ruby." I gripped the phone, my fingers turning white. "Are you still there?" Megan asked softly. "I'm here," I replied, my voice hoarse. "Thank you for telling me." "Are you going to do something?" she asked, almost in a whisper. I didn't answer right away. I was thinking of Ella's eyes, the last time I saw her, still tiny, clinging to me at a birthday party, asking why people don't like Aunt Ruby. Back then, I just smiled and brushed it off, like everyone else did with me. History was repeating itself, only this time it wasn't on my body. It was happening to an innocent 8-year-old girl. And it was still Mason, still that same family script. She's overreacting. She's too sensitive. She should have kept quiet. Except this time, one thing was different. I was no longer that child. And I wasn't going to let Ella grow up carrying the same scars I did. After I hung up, I opened the Notes app on my phone and documented Megan's account word for word, including the time and date of the call. Then I reopened my email and wrote to Miss Helen Grady. Subject: I need a witness, this time for Ella. Dear Miss Helen, I need your help with something else. There's another child, my niece, currently staying with my parents. I was just informed that Mason pushed her and told her she was being dramatic like Ruby. Every excuse, every blame-shifting phrase I once heard is happening again. I can't stay silent, but I also know this must be handled properly. You once said you kept a journal and wanted to speak up. If you still have those records, I'd like to include them in the official file. I intend to go all the way, not just for myself, but for Ella. I need everything that was once ignored to be brought into the light. Thank you for seeing and for coming back. It's really. After sending the email, I didn't wait long. I opened my laptop and created a new folder, Phase 2, Protection. Inside, I saved the following: the recorded call with Megan, legally recorded under Oregon law. The recent photos of Mason, proof of proximity to of the documents retrieved from my external hard drive, a list of potential witnesses. The email exchange with Miss Helen. I never thought I'd be a lawyer or an investigator, but I knew how to organize a case file. I knew how to protect people, and this time, the one who needed protection wasn't a hospital patient, it was Ella. That night, I sat again at the kitchen table, the warm light overhead shining onto a printed photo. Me, at 13, my arm bandaged, eyes unable to meet the camera. I wrote on the back of the photo, history is not meant to repeat, it's meant to be stopped. And I vowed, Ella would not become a smaller version of me. Not under any roof. Not even one called family. Sunday afternoon, I stood in front of my parents' house, holding a box of apple pie, the kind my mom liked, with just a hint of cinnamon and a perfectly crisp crust. I knew exactly what I was doing, presenting a normal facade as bait for a necessary confrontation. I didn't knock. I still had the key from 10 years ago. The house looked exactly as it did the last time I walked out. A worn-out doormat, garden lights blinking out of sync, the smell of cheap air freshener mixed with strong coffee. My mother was setting the table, softly whistling when she saw me walk in. Oh, Ruby, you're just in time. I'm reheating the stew. What did you bring? Apple pie, I said, placing the box on the table. I remembered you liked this kind. Well, it's nice that you remembered, she replied, lips tightening slightly, eyes still scanning me. Ella's in the room coloring. Don't upset her. She just stopped crying today. I looked up. Why was she crying? Kid stuff, got upset because she couldn't have cookies, just like you used to. I held my breath, following her into the kitchen. My dad was at the table, reading the paper, glasses sliding down his nose, his face expressionless. I won't stay long, I said. There's something I need to clarify. This isn't about the house again, is it? He didn't look up. No. This is more serious. I opened my bag and placed 2 envelopes on the table. One held printed photos of my old injuries, with timestamps from original metadata. The other held a printed email from Helen Grady, who had agreed to testify. My mom frowned. What is this? Evidence, I said evenly, of physical and emotional abuse that happened in this house for over 20 years, and not just to me. Oh God, Ruby, Mom scoffed. You're still dragging this out? Ella was pushed by Mason and called a copy of me. The cycle is repeating, but not this time. My dad put the paper down. Is this a threat? No, it's a choice, I said, pulling out one last sheet. A letter confirming I had met with a lawyer, with a case being prepared for Child Protective Services and law enforcement. You have 72 hours to come forward. Publicly. Acknowledge what happened. Otherwise, I will... The kitchen fell silent. The wall clock ticked with dull, heavy beats. My mom stepped closer, her voice low. You have no idea what you're about to destroy. You'll ruin this family's reputation. I met her gaze. That reputation never protected me, and it won't save Ella either. My dad shook his head, stood up, voice full of disdain. You've always been the weakest. No one's going to believe you. You resent us because you weren't the favorite. Then let the evidence speak, I said, resting my hand gently on the envelope of photos. At that moment, from the hallway doorway, there was a faint shuffling sound. I turned. Ella was standing there, clutching her teddy bear, eyes wide in fear. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight as if trying not to cry. My mother rushed over. What are you doing here? Go back to your room. No, I cut her off, stepping forward to shield Ella. She has the right to hear, the right to know that what she's feeling is real, that she's not crazy, not weak, not overreacting. Mom turned to me, fury in her eyes. You're poisoning her. No, I'm uprooting the poison. Ella trembled. I crouched down, gently speaking to her. You're safe now. Aunt Ruby won't let anyone hurt you again. She nodded faintly, still wary. But I saw it, that fragile look I once wore. A flicker of trust had just sparked. I took Ella's hand, turned to my parents one last time. This is your final warning. I'm not coming back to deliver another. Next time, it's action. Then I walked away, front door swinging open, the chill evening wind brushing past my shoulders. Ella walked beside me, her little hand clinging to mine like it was the last anchor she had left. At the steps, I paused without turning back. You called me the troublemaker. History will call me the one who ended the silence. 1 week later, I stood at the back of the Maplewood City Community Hall, my hand gripping the USB in my coat pocket. That afternoon, the neighborhood council was holding a ceremony to honor the outstanding family in educational contributions, and the ones being recognized were my parents, Carl and Brenda Branson. The room was filled with familiar faces from my middle and high school years. Old neighbors, former teachers, Mason's friends, even those who used to avoid eye contact with me at parent meetings because they didn't want to get involved in someone else's family drama. My mom stepped onto the stage in a sky blue silk dress, wearing the textbook traditional mother's smile. My dad looked sharp in a charcoal gray suit, calm and composed. They walked up to receive the certificate to a round of polite, rhythmic applause. The host was saying, the Branson family raised two wonderful children, Mason, now a certified HVAC technician, and Ruby, a dedicated nurse who has taken her own path but remains connected to the community. I stepped forward. Every eye turned to me. My parents froze. I heard my mom whisper, "What is she doing here?" I didn't need a mic. My voice was steady and clear. Sorry to interrupt, but I need to clarify a few things before this award is presented. A heavy silence fell across the room. I walked up to the AV table and handed the USB to the technician. I just need 1 minute. Please, listen to this. A recording came through the main speakers, a child's shaky voice, weak but clear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Please don't lock me out. Then my mother's voice, cold, furious. If you don't want to be punished, then don't screw up. Next time you cry, no one's opening that door. The room seemed to stop breathing. A few hands went up to mouths. I stepped onto the stage. I'm Ruby Branson, daughter of the two people being honored today. I'm the one they called a drama queen, a troublemaker. I was shoved downstairs, locked in storage rooms, hit in the face. No one believed me. They said I was sensitive. A liar. I took a deep breath. The child in that audio isn't me. That's Ella, my niece. Currently staying in temporary protective custody. History is repeating itself. And this time, I won't stay silent. Whispers began to ripple through the audience. A woman in the third row stood up. I remember seeing bruises on Ruby's arm in 8th grade. I asked her about it, but I dropped it. I was scared. Another voice, Mason's old gym teacher, croaked out. I saw Mason shove his sister in the backyard once. I thought they were just roughhousing. Now I feel like a fool. My mother shot to her feet, pale with rage. This is all lies. That girl has emotional issues. She was once hospitalized in a psychiatric ward. My father immediately pulled a paper from his briefcase. Here's documentation of Ruby's mental condition from when she was 25. A clear diagnosis. You should know who you're trusting. I didn't flinch. I raised my hand. I'd like to call Dr. Eleanor Hart to the stage. A woman in her 50s, wearing a white coat, rose from the front row and stepped up. Her face was stern, eyes locked on my parents. I was the attending physician for Ruby during that time, and I can confirm the document Mr. Carl Branson is holding has been altered. Chairs creaked, some people started to rise. Ruby was never diagnosed with a psychiatric disorder. Her original file shows she was admitted for soft tissue injuries following a domestic accident. We suspected abuse, but there was no cooperation from the family. I pulled out a notarized copy of the original file from my coat pocket and held it up. This is the truth. My mother's hand dropped the paper. My father turned away, jaw clenched. The host cleared his throat awkwardly, then said, "We are going to pause the ceremony here." I stepped off the stage, not looking back. But as I passed the last row, I caught a small pair of eyes peeking out from behind a social worker's shoulder. Ella. She stared at me, then slowly nodded. I clenched my hand and kept walking. Not to escape, but to move toward where truth belongs, in the light. One Wednesday morning, Oregon was as gloomy as usual when I walked into the county courthouse, holding a file with Ruby A. Branson at the top of the emergency guardianship petition. Ella sat a few rows away, clutching a silver-gray teddy bear, her eyes trying to make sense of why an 8-year-old had to be in a place like this. The judge overseeing the case was Judge Jacobs, a woman in her 60s with neatly tied silver hair and a voice sharp as a scalpel. She read the file page by page, no rushing, no blinking. I stood still, hand clenched inside my coat pocket where I had tucked a small slip of paper, an excerpt from my own journal. Silence protects no one anymore. The representative from Child Protective Services confirmed. Ella showed signs of emotional trauma. She had quietly sobbed when Mason's name came up. And when asked where she wanted to live, she didn't choose her birth mother, nor Grandma and Grandpa, but whispered, "With Aunt Ruby." When the judge looked up, her gaze rested on me for a long time. "Miss Branson," she said, "do you understand the responsibility of becoming a legal guardian?" "I do," I answered, my voice steady. "And I'm ready." She nodded. "With the documentation, testimony, and current circumstances, I hereby grant the petition. Ruby Branson will become the legal guardian of Ella Branson, effective today." No applause, no music, just 3 seconds of stillness. Then Ella jumped up and ran to me, wrapping her arms tightly around my waist. Her little shoulders trembled. I bent down and hugged her back, for the first time feeling an embrace that wasn't trying to hold me in a place of pain, but to lead us both out of it, together. That afternoon, we returned to my small apartment in Bend. Ella sat quietly the entire drive, but her eyes lit up as I pointed out the pine forests, the deer grazing near the roadside, and a quirky cafe called Mug and Moonlight. "Aunt Ruby," she asked as I pulled into the driveway, "does anyone yell here?" I looked at her through the rearview mirror and said softly, "No one yells. No one gets angry. Only people who truly listen." My apartment wasn't big, but it was warm. I had already prepared a small room for Ella, a simple wooden bed sheets with moons and stars, a low bookshelf, and a little music box playing a tune I had loved as a child. On the desk was a small gift box wrapped in pale silver paper. "This is for you," I said, pointing to the box. Ella opened it, her eyes wide. Inside was a white porcelain mug with light blue daisies, no cracks, no chips. "For drinking cocoa whenever you want," I smiled. "No need to ask anyone." She looked at me, then gently lifted the cup with both hands like it was treasure. "This one's just mine, right?" "Yes," I said, "and no one can take it from you." That night, after Ella fell asleep, I sat in my small workspace and pulled down a new journal. On the cover were the words, "Things I was once forbidden to say." I opened to the first page, pen in hand, and wrote, I used to stay silent, thinking it kept the peace. But silence is never the answer. It only gives power to the ones who hurt. Today, I break that legacy, and I begin again. I set the pen down and looked out the window. Wind brushed through the pines, streetlights casting a soft glow across the desk. On the shelf, Grandma Denise's bracelet rested beside the old chipped teacup, the one I used for years while icing my bruises at night. I had kept that cup for so long. It once symbolized endurance. Now, beside it, was Ella's new mug, unblemished, untouched by broken pasts. I wouldn't throw away the old cup, but I wouldn't use it anymore either, because from now on, both Ella and I deserve something whole. A beginning that isn't soaked in blood, isn't silenced, isn't haunted by someone growling, "Don't tell anyone." I poured tea into my own cup for the first time in years and let the quiet surround me like rebirth, a silence that was no longer oppression, but true peace. Ruby's story is a powerful reminder that family abuse doesn't only exist in bruises. It lives in silence, in secrecy, and in the normalization of pain. When a victim chooses to speak up, not just to protect themselves, but to break the cycle for the next generation, that is the bravest act of all. In real life, thousands still live in similar silence, but as Ruby proved, the truth, once spoken, can become a tool for healing and for changing the future. What do you think about Ruby's decision? Would you do the same in her place? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional, real-life stories and lessons from families like this.